My name is Ariella James, and I'm 29 years old. I never thought the person I loved most would turn his back on me without even asking for the truth. But maybe I was naive to think that love was enough, that being his daughter meant he would choose me over a well-spoken lie. It was raining the day he told me to leave. I remember it not because of the weather, but because of how cold his eyes were. My father, David James, was a man of principles, or so he claimed. Trust is everything, he used to say. But trust, I've come to learn, can be fragile when poisoned by doubt. And someone made sure he doubted me. I had only packed one bag. I stood in the hallway of the home I grew up in, soaked from the storm I'd just come in from. I wasn't even given time to dry off before he told me to get out. I waited for him to soften, for his voice to tremble, for his fingers to twitch like they used to when he regretted something. But there was nothing, just silence. And anger. You know what you did, Ariella. I won't have a liar under my roof. Not after what you've done. What I've done. Dad, enough. He never let me explain. Not once. The lie had already been planted, and it was growing fast, its roots twisting around everything we once were. What hurt the most wasn't being kicked out. It was that he didn't even look at me when he did it. I spent the next few nights sleeping in my car, curled into the back seat with a blanket that smelled like the apartment I had left behind months ago when I moved back in with my dad. I came home to heal from a messy breakup, a stalled career, and a quiet sense of failure that had followed me like a shadow since college. But healing is impossible when your world breaks again. And this time, the cracks ran deeper. The lie didn't just cost me a place to stay. It cost me relationships. Friends stopped answering my messages, my cousin blocked me, and even my godmother left a voicemail saying she was praying for my soul. What the hell had they told everyone? The only person who still spoke to me was Mara, my childhood best friend, and even she was hesitant. I'm not saying I believe it, Ari. It's a lot. And your dad is so sure. I could hear it in her voice. Doubt. Quiet. Slippery. Dangerous. That's the thing about lies, they don't have to be loud. Just convincing enough. I needed to know the truth. If I couldn't clear my name, I could at least understand what lie destroyed me. But when I reached out to my father's new wife, Stacy, she refused to answer. The woman who once hugged me like a daughter now posted cryptic Bible verses on Facebook about deceivers among us. My ex, Caleb, hadn't spoken to me since he left. But something told me he was tied into this somehow. There were too many gaps, too many coincidences, and too many people suddenly pulling away from me without warning. People who once loved me. Someone had made sure I looked guilty. Someone with something to hide. It wasn't until I overheard a conversation at a gas station, 2 towns over, that I found my first thread of truth. A woman older, sharp, the kind that watches everything and misses nothing, was talking to the cashier about the James girl who got caught with the money. Shame, she said. Embezzling from your own father's business. You'd think she'd at least be smarter than that. I stood frozen. Embezzling? My father ran a private contracting firm. I worked part-time doing books for a few months. But I never touched a dime that wasn't mine. Unless someone made it look like I did. It all clicked into place too slowly to stop the nausea from building in my gut. A forged transfer here, a missing receipt there. It would be easy to frame someone who had limited access. Especially if you knew the passwords. Especially if you wanted them gone. Stacy, my stepmother. She had access. And she never liked that I moved back in. I'd left Caleb. Moved home. Got a job at my father's office to start over. I was a threat to the little world she had built with him. And now I was conveniently out of the picture. But she'd made one mistake. She thought I'd stay quiet. My father's 60th birthday was in 3 weeks. He loved drama-free celebrations. Clean suits, tailored ties, people clapping politely as he gave speeches about family and legacy. I wasn't invited this year, obviously. But I planned to show up anyway. Not with a gift. With the truth. They say when you hit rock bottom, you find out who your real friends are. But what they don't say is how silent the world gets when even your real ones aren't sure you didn't do it. Mara was the only person who hadn't cut me off completely, but our phone calls were becoming shorter, more strained. Every time I tried to explain, she'd listen, but only halfway. I could hear the background noise of her life moving on. A boyfriend laughing. Dishes clinking. Life happening. I wasn't part of anyone's life anymore. Except for mine. And even that felt like it was on pause. I spent the next few days holed up in a rundown motel off Highway 54, the kind of place where the front desk clerk doesn't ask questions and the towels smell like bleach and secrets. I laid out everything I remembered about the last few months. Every bank transfer, every email, every late-night conversation with Stacy, and every offhand comment my father made about his tight margins. And then, something odd happened. I found an email I didn't remember sending. It was from my work address, dated just a week before I was kicked out, authorizing a $12,000 vendor payment to a company I'd never heard of. I checked the attachment. It was a forged invoice with my signature copied and pasted at the bottom, pixelated and slightly off-center. Sloppy. They didn't count on me looking this closely. Or maybe they did. Maybe they thought I'd just disappear. I drove 2 towns over to a public library and logged into an old friend's accountant dashboard I'd once helped build during a college internship. Using a few rusty tricks and a burner laptop, I ran a basic trace on the company's registration number. It was registered to Caleb Monroe, my ex. I stared at the screen for so long my vision blurred. Caleb, my ex-boyfriend of 5 years. The man who once swore I was his future. The one who left me just months ago, with no warning, no explanation, just a voicemail and a silence that still haunts my dreams. And now he was part of this? A fake company, forged documents, and a paper trail designed to make me the thief? This was more than a breakup. This was a setup. I swear to God, if this is real, I drove to Mara's apartment with my hands trembling on the wheel, heart thrashing in my chest like a wild animal. I didn't call first. I couldn't risk her saying no. I needed someone, anyone, to look at this and say I wasn't going insane. She opened the door in sweatpants, no makeup, eyes wide with surprise. Ari? What are you? You said you'd believe me if I had proof. She didn't speak. Just stepped aside. I showed her everything. The forged email. The fake invoice. The registered business under Caleb's name. The matching account numbers. The pattern. How everything lined up too perfectly. Her eyes didn't move from the screen. When she finally spoke, her voice was different. Softer. Ashamed. Ari. I think you need to know something. About Caleb. And Stacy. My stomach dropped. What? She hesitated. I didn't want to believe it, but I saw them together. Months ago. At a bar in Midtown. They were laughing. Close. Not like family. More like she didn't finish. She didn't have to. The ground beneath me didn't just crack, it collapsed. My stepmother and my ex. Together. Plotting? Sleeping together? Scheming against me? Suddenly the coldness in Stacy's eyes made sense. The way Caleb vanished without a fight. The lie that no one could repeat directly to my face. It was all connected. And it was personal. Not just money. Not just betrayal. Revenge. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the motel room with the door locked, laptop open, staring at the files over and over again. But one question haunted me. Why? Why go to these lengths? Was it jealousy? Hatred? Insecurity? Or was I just the easiest person to frame because I still believed in second chances? My father's birthday party was now just 2 weeks away. I marked the date on the back of a gas station receipt, folded it like a weapon, and tucked it into my wallet. I wasn't ready to show up, not yet, but I would be. And when I did, I wouldn't come alone. Not with noise. Not with violence. With proof. And if they still didn't believe me, then I'd give them something they couldn't ignore. Even if it meant burning everything to the ground, somewhere between betrayal and justice lies obsession. And I was falling straight through the middle of it. The truth wasn't just burning in my chest anymore, it was beginning to consume me. Sleep came in fragments. Food tasted like ash. The only thing I craved was clarity. And maybe revenge. 2 weeks. That's all I had until my father's birthday. It wouldn't be enough time to undo what they'd done to me. But it was enough time to show him the person he trusted most was a liar, and the man I once loved had used both of us for something darker than I could have imagined. The plan was simple. Gather hard evidence. Not screenshots. Not assumptions. Something that couldn't be talked around or dismissed with a Bible verse and a tight-lipped smirk from Stacy. So I started where the trail first went cold, at the house. My childhood home. It was Saturday evening, just after dusk. I parked down the road, hood pulled up, face mostly shadowed. I waited for the lights to go out. Stacy always went to bed early, and my father had a monthly poker night at his friend Lionel's. I had 2 hours max. I crept around the back fence and paused at the garden gate. My mother used to keep it filled with white lilies. After she died, I tried to keep them alive, but they faded every spring. Stacy replaced them with plastic ones. Fitting, I thought. Fake flowers for a fake heart. I slid through the back door using the spare key my father never remembered to move from the birdhouse. Old habits really do die hard. The house smelled the same, wood polish, paper, faint hints of cinnamon. But it felt colder. Like it didn't belong to me anymore. I moved fast, straight to the office. Stacy had taken it over since the marriage, and it showed. Designer notepads, motivational quotes framed on the wall, her initials monogrammed on everything. But behind her vanity was a steel filing cabinet. And in that cabinet, I found the first real crack in their story. A folder labeled, Monroe Holdings, Personal. I opened it carefully, flipping past receipts, wire transfers, and handwritten notes with initials I didn't recognize. But near the back, my breath caught a photo of Caleb and Stacy seated at a candlelit table, heads close together. Her hand was on his thigh. The timestamp was dated 6 months before Caleb broke up with me. They weren't just having an affair. They'd been in it for months. I wasn't the woman Caleb betrayed. I was the alibi. And there was more. Another document, a notarized agreement. Stacy and Caleb had signed on a joint venture under Monroe Holdings, with shares divided. 40 for her, 50 for him. 10 reserved under an anonymous holding name, CJ Trust. My initials. Except, I didn't create it. But someone wanted it to look like I did. I didn't hear the door creak behind me until it was too late. Ariella. I froze. It was Becca, my half-sister. Becca. 17. Stacy's daughter from a previous marriage. Quiet, artistic, and always lurking in corners with her sketchbook and headphones. We weren't close, but she never hated me. She blinked at me, clutching a glass of water in her hand, wearing a hoodie too big for her small frame. You're not supposed to be here. I know. I needed something. Just 5 minutes, please. She glanced at the folder in my hand. Her mouth parted, then closed again. Then, softly, she said, "You found it, didn't you?" I stared. Found what? She stepped closer. What they've been hiding. What they did to you. The room spun slightly. Becca, what do you know? She hesitated. I've seen things. Heard things. They think I'm invisible. They talk like I don't exist. But I remember. Caleb started coming around long before they told anyone. Mom always told me to leave the room when he showed up. Did she ever say why? No. But once, she said you were too nosy. That you ruined everything just by being home. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. I was scared. I didn't blame her. I still was. But something about Becca's trembling hands and wide, sorrowful eyes told me she wasn't just afraid for herself. They're planning something, she whispered. They talk about money. About making sure you don't come back. That your father never trusts you again. They said if you show up at the party, they'll have something ready. Something like what? I don't know. But Mom said it'll finish her. Suddenly, the truth I held in my hands didn't feel like armor. It felt like bait. This wasn't just about clearing my name anymore. It was about surviving the trap they were still setting for me. And the party? It was the stage. People say the truth sets you free. But sometimes, it just puts a target on your back. After Becca whispered those words, they said if you show up at the party, they'll have something ready. It'll finish her. I couldn't move. My mind wanted to ask 100 questions, but my body felt like it had been dipped in ice water. There was something terrifying about hearing it from her. Not from a stranger, not from some distant rumor, but from a girl who lived under their roof. Who watched it all in silence. Becca, are you sure? She nodded. I hear things. They think I'm asleep, but I'm not. I have screenshots, text messages. I didn't understand them before, but now, she reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out a flash drive, the cheap kind you could buy anywhere. I saved them in case something happened. To me, to either of us. Back in the motel, I plugged it in with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Becca wasn't exaggerating. It wasn't just shady behavior, it was a full-blown conspiracy. Texts between Caleb and Stacy discussing the narrative. Bank account numbers that matched the phony transactions. A message from Caleb that read, "She'll never recover from this. Her own dad will bury her." I sat on the floor, knees drawn up, scrolling through evidence of how easily two people who once swore they cared about me, one who married into my family, and one who used to call me baby, while tracing hearts into my skin, decided to dismantle my life. And worse? They were laughing while doing it. I barely slept. Just lay on the motel bed staring at the stained ceiling tiles, wondering how far they'd go to silence me. How much was too much to protect a lie that had gone too far? By morning, I'd made my choice. I wasn't going to avoid the party. I was going to walk into it like I owned the room. But I needed backup. That's when I thought of Elias. We hadn't spoken in years. Not since we drifted apart after college. He used to be a tech wizard. Quiet, observant, a little too good at getting into places he shouldn't be. But more importantly, he knew Caleb. They were friends once. Until Caleb stole his client, his code, and tried to pass it off as his own. Ariella James wasn't the only person Caleb had betrayed. I found Elias living in a loft above a used bookstore 3 towns over. The door opened to the smell of coffee, wires, and insomnia. Ari? Holy. Wow. You look ruined? Thanks. No. Different. Like you've seen too much. I have. I told him everything. And I showed him the flash drive. He sat in silence the entire time, eyes narrowing at the names, the account trails, the date stamps. Jesus, he muttered. This is more than petty revenge. They're laundering money. My stomach flipped. What? See this routing pattern? They're moving cash through dummy vendors. Using your name as the fall guy. It's not just about hurting you, Ariella. They're covering up something bigger. And if you blow it open, you don't just clear your name, you expose them. Suddenly the setup made perfect sense. They weren't trying to finish me, to destroy my reputation. They were trying to eliminate the loose end that could put them both in prison. Me? You're going to that party? Yes. Then you're walking into the lion's den. Not alone. Elias smiled. The kind of smile you wear when you're preparing for war. Then let's give them a show they'll never forget. The plan took shape quickly. Elias would rig a presentation with the evidence, time to play during my father's birthday speech. He'd set up a hidden projector that connected wirelessly. All I had to do was press one button on my phone. But there was one variable we couldn't control. My father. Would he even believe me after all this? Would he shut it down before it could finish? Would he call security before hearing the truth? The answer didn't matter. Because this time, I wasn't doing it for him. I was doing it for me. But then, just 2 nights before the party, I received an anonymous message. No name, no greeting. Just one chilling sentence. If you show up on Sunday, I promise you won't leave the same. If you show up on Sunday, I promise you won't leave the same. That one sentence looped in my mind all night like a curse I couldn't shake. I stared at it on the cracked screen of my phone, waiting for a follow-up, a name, something. But there was nothing. No number. Just a ghost text from a blocked source. A warning. Or a threat. Maybe both. When I told Elias, he went quiet. That worried me more than anything else. It's a scare tactic, he finally said. They know you've got something. You're too close. Close to what exactly? A fraud scheme? Some family drama? No. Closer to undoing everything they built. The more we dug, the deeper it went. Caleb and Stacy hadn't just framed me for embezzlement. They had set up multiple shell companies in my name, some of which were now showing signs of international transfers. Accounts in Belize, Dubai, and Luxembourg. It wasn't just fraud. It was laundering, smuggling, organized theft. And I was their fall girl, the woman who loved one and trusted the other. The daughter who was supposed to disappear quietly, emotionally crushed and financially destroyed so that no one would dig into the numbers she used to handle. But I did dig. And now, someone was watching. That night, I moved motels. I left the flash drive with Elias and went to a cheap roadside inn with no cameras and no online booking system. I paid in cash, just in case. Still, I felt eyes. Every time I glanced out the window, I swore I saw someone across the street, standing still. Not moving, just watching. I told myself I was being paranoid. Until the next morning, when I found a note slid under my door. No envelope, no signature, just words scrawled in small, angry pen strokes. You still don't get it. This isn't about the money anymore. Stay gone, or lose more than your name. My hands went cold. The edge of the paper had something on it, wax, maybe blood. I didn't want to look too closely. I'd never felt this level of fear before. But even through the terror, I felt something else. Rage. By noon, I was back at Elias's, pacing while he typed furiously, tracing IPs and encryptions. It was sent from a device that was wiped after one use, he muttered. Professional. This isn't Caleb's style. He's flashy. Sloppy. Then who? He paused. Someone smarter. Someone inside. A chill spread down my arms. You think it's Dad? I don't know, he said gently. But someone close to him. Someone with resources. It can't be him, I whispered. He's many things, but he's not this. But I wasn't sure anymore. Because when you stop recognizing the people who raised you, everything feels possible. We spent the rest of the day encrypting the files, preparing backup drives, and planning an escape route in case things went bad. I'll be in the crowd, Elias said. Laptop in hand. If they try to cut your mic, I'll reroute the presentation. You speak. Then we play the video. The numbers. The texts. All of it. And after, we run. I nodded, but a knot formed in my chest. Because despite everything, a piece of me still hoped that when my father saw the truth, he would finally believe me. That night, I sat on a hill overlooking the city. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just let the wind tangle through my hair and tried to remember who I was before this mess. Before love became a weapon. Before family turned their back. Before home became a battlefield. I remembered little Ariella, 8 years old, making birthday cards for her dad with glitter and glue, convinced he was the strongest man in the world. And I whispered something into the night air, like a prayer. If I lose everything else, just let me keep myself. The next morning, Becca called. She was whispering again. I found something else. In Mom's closet. Hidden in his shoebox. What is it? A burner phone. It has videos. Voice memos. Names I don't recognize. Can you bring it to me? I can't leave the house today. But I can send you one clip. She hung up and 2 minutes later, a file came through. I hit play. The screen flickered. Then came Stacy's voice. Caleb's too. Drunk. Arrogant. She still thinks she can fix things with him, Stacy slurred. Let her try, Caleb laughed. By the time Ari shows up, he'll be too deep in it to listen. He's seen the numbers. He's signed off on them. You forged the docs? Just enough. If she speaks up, we'll say she's trying to save herself. Who's he going to believe? His wife and his future son-in-law, or his little screw-up of a daughter? The clip ended. I nearly dropped the phone. Future son-in-law. They were getting married. Caleb was going to marry my stepmother. And my father was already being roped in, whether he realized it or not. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about stopping them before they swallowed him whole. Sunday came like thunder in my chest. I hadn't slept. Not even for a second. My body was running on nerves, caffeine, and something I hadn't felt in months, resolve. I wore black. Not for drama. For power. Hair down. face sharp. My emotions sealed beneath skin that once cracked for everyone. No more tears. Tonight wasn't about grieving the family I lost. It was about burying the lie they built on my name. The venue was extravagant, one of those historic garden halls outside the city where the rich pretended they had class and the past was prettier than it ever was. Gold accents, white roses, champagne fountains, and in the middle of it all, my father. 60 years old, laughing like nothing was broken, wearing the same charcoal gray suit he wore the night of my high school graduation. I hadn't seen him in 6 months. My heart lurched, then stiffened. When I walked in, the room didn't go silent like in movies. But heads did turn. Some gasped, some whispered. And one person, Stacy, went completely still. She was wearing a deep emerald dress, too tight, too expensive, too performative. A glass of wine in one hand, my father's elbow in the other. She smiled when she saw me. Not surprised. Not nervous. Prepared. That scared me more than anything. Ariella, she purred as I approached, voice too sweet. Didn't expect to see you here. That makes 2 of us, I said coldly. My father turned. Our eyes met. And for a moment, just one, I saw the flicker of the man I used to trust. Ari, he said softly, unsure. I didn't. No one told me you were. No one invited me. I cut in, turning my gaze to Stacy. But I couldn't miss your big night. Not when it's about family. The tension thickened like fog. People watched from behind champagne flutes. A murmur passed through the crowd. Stacy stepped forward. I think it's best you leave. This is neither the time nor place for whatever stunt you're planning. Oh, but I disagree, I said, pulling out my phone. Ariella, my father began. No, I said, loud enough for the guests to hear. For months, I let everyone believe I was a liar. A thief. A disgrace. I lost my job, my home, my relationship with you. But what I didn't lose was the truth. And with that, I tapped the screen. Behind me, a projector flickered to life. At first, confusion. Then gasps. Screens lit up across the room. Elias had hijacked the system perfectly. Slide after slide, the falsified invoices. The money trail from the shell companies. The registration of Monroe Holdings to Caleb. The video clip, the one with Caleb and Stacy laughing about how my father would never believe me. I watched his face. At first, disbelief. Then, something deeper. Recognition. What is this? He asked, voice low, almost breaking. Where did you get this? From the people you trusted more than me, I said. From your wife and her future husband. The crowd gasped again. What? My father blinked. I nodded toward Stacy. She didn't tell you? She and Caleb were planning to marry. You were the last to know. His hand dropped from hers. Stacy's expression faltered, but only for a second. She's manipulating you, she said. This is fake. Edited. Caleb was helping me fix your daughter's mess. Then why are your names on the same offshore accounts? Elias called out from the back. Everyone turned. He stepped forward. Cool. Collected. Holding a folder and a tablet. I'm the IT security consultant hired to audit Monroe Holdings. I can verify every document, every timestamp, every transaction. She's not the thief. The crowd murmured again. Phones began to rise. Photos, videos, evidence. Stacy turned to my father, her mask cracking. David, baby, listen to me. She's unwell. You know she's always been jealous. Emotional. Lost. Stop, my father said. His voice was flat. Empty. Just stop. Then he turned to me. Why didn't you come to me sooner? I did, I whispered. You slammed the door. He looked like a man breaking in slow motion. But just as the silence settled, a loud crash echoed through the back of the room. Caleb. Drunk. Furious. Stumbling forward with a glass in hand. You self-righteous little bitch, he slurred. You think this changes anything? He shoved a server's tray. Glasses shattered. Elias stepped forward, protective now. It's over, I said to Caleb. No, he growled. You don't get to walk away clean. I gave you everything. And you threw it away. You gave me a lie, I snapped. And I'm giving it back. He lunged. Security grabbed him mid-swing. People screamed. My father shouted. Becca appeared from the side, crying silently, hugging herself. And through it all, I just stood there. Still. It took 10 minutes for the room to settle. For Caleb to be dragged out. For Stacy to vanish into a car like a fleeing queen. And for my father to approach me again. I don't know what to say, he said. Except, I was wrong. You were, I said, voice trembling. Can you ever forgive me? I didn't answer right away, because part of me didn't know if I could. As I stood beneath the gold chandeliers and champagne-scented shame, I realized something important. This wasn't my home anymore. And maybe it never was. The party ended, but the silence afterward was somehow louder than the chaos. People left in murmurs and stares, their faces blurring past me like ghosts. I should have felt triumphant. I exposed the truth. I reclaimed my name, but I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. My father didn't say much after his apology. He looked at me like a man watching his own legacy burn and couldn't decide whether to jump in after it or just let it go. He offered me a ride home. I declined. I'm not ready to ride in silence, I said. Not with you. He nodded. I deserve that. I stood alone on the marble steps outside the hall as the cars pulled away. The air was cold. The kind of cold that gets into your teeth. Elias joined me minutes later, the projector equipment bag slung over one shoulder, his brow furrowed in quiet thought. You okay? He asked. I don't know, I said honestly. I didn't expect it to feel like this. Like what? Like I got my voice back, but lost everything else. We went back to his loft and sat in silence for hours. He made tea. I didn't drink it. Just sat there staring out the window at the city lights, wondering what came next. I wanted peace. Closure. But my gut still whispered, it's not over. And I was right. The next morning, Elias was gone when I woke up. Left a note. Had to run a few checks on the drive. Back soon. Lock the door. I did. Then I checked my phone, 2 missed calls from Becca. I called back immediately. She answered on the first ring, voice low and trembling. Ari. You need to come back to the house. Becca, no. It's not safe. It's not about that. I found something. In Mom's closet again. She was burning papers. Burning? She's covering something. But that's not the worst part. What is? Silence. Then, there's a journal. With names. Receipts. Dates. Some of them go back years. Long before she met your dad. I sat up straighter. What kind of names? Yours. Caleb's. Mine. And she paused. Elias. The room spun. No, I whispered. That's not possible. I don't know what it means yet, Becca said. But I think he knew about some of this before you came to him. I didn't want to believe it. I refused to believe it. But a sickening feeling settled into my bones, a feeling I'd come to recognize far too well lately. That someone close was holding back something deadly. When Elias returned that afternoon, I watched him from across the loft. His movements, his body language, the way he avoided my eyes. Find anything new? I asked. Still working on it, he said, placing the drive in a drawer. What about you? Becca called. She found more files. Good. That could help build a case if you decide to go legal. She also found your name. That made him freeze. Just a second too long. My name, he said carefully. In a journal. Stacy's. She kept track of people. Interactions. Including one from 3 years ago. In your handwriting. He didn't respond right away. When he did, he sat down across from me and sighed, like a man dragging a truth he didn't want to share. It wasn't supposed to get this far. Elias. I didn't work with them. I swear. But I knew Caleb was shady. Years ago. He asked me to build a secure network for some business clients he wouldn't name. I said no, but I suspected what he was doing. And you didn't tell me? Back then, I didn't know you were with him. You ghosted me after college, remember? By the time I found out, it felt too late. But when I came to you weeks ago, why didn't you say anything then? He looked genuinely hurt, defensive, but also guilty. Because I wanted to help. I thought I could make up for not warning you sooner. I thought if I helped you destroy them, maybe I could make it right. By lying to me again? I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything. I stood. That is a lie. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just picked up my coat and walked out. Because betrayal doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just whispers behind your back. Becca texted me later that night. She had scanned some of the journal and was sending pages. In the grainy photo attachments, I saw a list of 5 names. My name, circled in red. Elias's name, marked with a question mark. A final name I didn't recognize. C.D. Barrett, silenced? Silenced? That word gnawed at me. There was more to this story. Someone else they'd already ruined. Maybe someone they'd hurt. Maybe worse. And if they did it once, they could do it again. Some names feel like whispers in the dark. But C.D. Barrett echoed like a scream trapped underwater, muffled, desperate, and just on the edge of recognition. The red in question beside it, silenced, wasn't a metaphor. It was a threat. Or worse, a record. And I needed to find out which. I drove through the night with only one destination in mind. My old university. Caleb, Stacy. Their tangled web had roots that went deeper than my family. If that name was someone I crossed paths with during school, I had to find out how. Why? And most importantly, what happened to them. The university archives were closed, but a contact in admin, Ms. Dorsey, remembered me. She used to give me advice when I'd visit during lunch breaks, back when I thought my life was going to be normal, professional, safe. C.D. Barrett? She said, frowning behind her glasses. That sounds familiar. She typed. Clicked. Then stopped. Yes. Cameron Dahl Barrett. Enrolled your senior year. Transferred in from upstate. Bright kid. Business track. Honors program. GPA of 3.9. Then, dropped out. Suddenly. Dropped out. Well, that's what it says. But unofficially, he just disappeared. Mid-semester. Left his dorm. Left his books. Didn't even pick up his mail. Did anyone report it? Campus security opened a missing persons report, but it was closed quickly. Parents stopped pushing. Quiet. Almost like they were paid off. My stomach tightened. Do you have any idea where I could find him now? She hesitated, then scribbled something on a sticky note. Try this. It's an old P.O. box from a payment form. It's a long shot. But I knew something now. He existed. He was real. And he had been close to them. And like me, he'd vanished. The P.O. box was 2 towns over. Empty. But next to the post office was a diner, old, faded red booths, the kind where the servers remember everything you say. I showed a photo of the student ID Ms. Dorsey had printed for me. You ever seen this guy? I asked the waitress. She narrowed her eyes, then nodded slowly. Came in for a while. Always sat at the corner table. Kept to himself. Then one day he didn't. Did he say anything strange before he stopped coming? Said he was getting close to something. Said if something happened to him, check the initials. That's all. Then poof. Initials. She nodded. And he left a note. For someone named Ariella. My chest caved in for a second. You kept it? She reached under the register and pulled out a small, yellowing envelope. Figured he'd come back. Or you would. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside, a torn page from a notebook. Slanted, hurried handwriting. Ariella, you don't know me, but we were on the same path. Caleb recruited me. Said he needed a financial analyst to help streamline high-tier clients. I asked too many questions. Got shut out. My accounts were frozen. Someone threatened my parents. I left. If you're reading this, then they're still doing it. The initials they hide behind, they're not companies. They're people. Protected. Dangerous. Don't trust anyone tied to the Barrett Fund. It's not charity. It's a shell. And if Elias ever reaches out, ask him about Jakarta. C.D. Barrett. The paper dropped from my hands. Jakarta. I had never been there. But Elias had. He once told me it was a job he regretted. Said the client disappeared. Said he left before it got dirty. He lied. He had been involved before any of this started. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the wall of Elias's loft while he tapped away at his keyboard, pretending nothing had changed. But everything had. When he finally looked up, I spoke. What happened in Jakarta? He blinked, then smiled. What? Don't play dumb. Barrett mentioned it. Said you knew. Said they were there too. His smile faded. You read his note. So it's true. Parts of it. He sighed, stood, paced. They approached me after college. Not Caleb directly, someone higher. I was hired to build encryption systems for what I thought was a startup fund. It wasn't. It was a front. They were moving money from country to country under nonprofit shells. I pulled out when I realized what they were doing. And told no one? I thought if I stayed quiet, I'd be safe. They didn't just threaten people, Ariella. People vanished. Like Barrett. Like I almost did. I was trying to protect you. You were trying to protect yourself. He didn't argue. Didn't deny it. Because he couldn't. I grabbed the flash drive from the table, the one with all the evidence. Tucked it into my coat. You're not part of this anymore. Ariella. You had 1,000 chances to tell me the truth. You chose silence. Don't follow me. I stepped into the night with the knowledge that I was now more alone than ever. But I also had more than I came for. Proof of who they silenced. A trail that pointed to international corruption. And the beginnings of a much bigger list of names. But I needed one more thing. Help. Real help. Not friends. Not old flames. Someone who couldn't be bought. As I drove toward the city, I dialed a number I never thought I would. Detective Marla Singh. White Collar Crimes Division. She owed me a favor. When she picked up, her voice was low, cautious. Ariella, I have something you need to see. It's not just about fraud anymore. It's about international laundering. Missing people. And one name that connects all of it. Whose name? Mine. I handed the flash drive to Detective Marla Singh. She'd been investigating Monroe Holdings for years, but needed real proof. I gave her everything. Forged documents, offshore accounts, and the audio of Caleb and Stacy mocking my father. The case moved fast. Stacy was arrested, Caleb vanished but was caught trying to flee. The Barrett Fund and all fake accounts were frozen. My father was investigated but cleared he'd been unaware, just trusting the wrong people. Emotionally, he was lost. Calls came, but I wasn't ready. Becca testified bravely and found safety. Elias disappeared, apologizing for his silence. Then I got a package, evidence showing C.D. Barrett was alive, in hiding, thanking me for exposing the truth. I started writing, sharing my story raw and unfiltered. It went viral. Sometimes, I pass my father's house. He's alone now. I may never forgive completely, but healing means reclaiming myself. I'm Ariella James, daughter of a lie, survivor of the truth, and finally free.